When you look back on the most painful valleys of your life, do you wish you could change them?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's the old question I get asked a lot, which is, do you have any regrets? And of course not. It's when I look back at my life, I see it almost as a set of invisible hands creating a magical orchestration and a life school perfectly designed to carry me kicking and screaming into the human being destiny wants me to be. And I'm very practical. The Everyday Hero Manifesto, it's part playbook for exponential productivity. I talk about the 7 threats to world class. I share a lot of the methodology I've shared with billionaires, sports superstars, and empire makers. And having said that, the book is also a call to arms on being a spiritual heavyweight.
Right.
Because what's the point of being top of the mountain, but losing your soul in the process?
Yeah.
And what I want to bring to as many people as possible is you can be uber productive, you can be an empire maker, you can dominate your domain, you can materialize your primal genius, and at the same time, you can be so loving to people. And you can care about the earth, you can care about service, you can care about becoming the person your higher power wants you to be. And if you can marry those two universes, then I think you've done your job.
Yeah.
And so my difficulties, and I've gone through a lot of them. There's a chapter early on I mentioned before we went on. That time, 10 years of my private journals were vanished. And Lewis, I'm a daily journaler, and I've been doing so for going on 22 years. And so I had in those journals, I had my dreams, my hopes. The times that I was heartbroken, I wrote about my difficulties, my weaknesses, my fears. I wrote about my travels, I wrote about my learnings, I wrote about my struggles. Everything was in those journals because that's what journals are for. And one sunny Friday, I went into the cupboard and they were all gone.
Where'd they go?
Well, you know, I'm going to protect the unpresent because we all do our best based on the place that we're at, and I'm not going to judge. And I have absolutely no bitterness or anything because it served me again.
Yeah,
it was a platform for possibility because that taught me one of the most powerful lessons I think a human being can learn, which is the ability to let go. Right? It's okay, so what? Someone sees them. One of my favorite movies is a Jeremy Renner movie. And in it he says, you know, you look inside every person's life and what you see, the movie's called Kill the Messenger. And he said, look inside anyone's life and what do you see? A 3-ring circus. And so what are they going to do? If they look inside my journals, they say a man who has dreams and ethical ambitions and aspirations and wants to live beautifully, and they see a man who's flawed and scared sometimes and has things to work through and has struggles like anyone, and that just makes me human.
What's the biggest fear, insecurity you had about what people might know about you from those journals, or what people might know about you now? A fear and insecurity that if people knew, that would make you feel, I don't know if they really want to know this.
I think just how much pizza and chocolate I eat. No, no. I would say, well, there's another thing I write about in the book, which is the whole idea about being good enough. Yes. And we all have our own struggles based on our own ancient wounds, but one of my core themes that I've been working on for many years is just not feeling, it's not imposter syndrome, but it's just not feeling good enough. Like no matter what I achieve, what's the next mountaintop?
How long have you felt that?
Probably since I was a little kid. Now,
really?
Yeah, and it's served me well in the sport that I'm in.
Yeah.
Right, because you just keep on pushing. And I think if you look at the great ones, the Michael Jordans and the Kobes and the Muhammad Alis and the Bobby Fishers and the Hedy Lamars and the Mandelas, I mean, I think they all share a similar wound. I think what can be a curse can also be a blessing. But for me, you know, just because you've asked, it's that feeling like no matter how many books I write, no matter what I do, what's the next mountaintop? And that can lead, I think I'm a very happy, content person, but it can lead to a frustration
I mean, 20 million copies sold of your books. How many books do you need to sell in order to feel like you're enough?
Well, ask James Patterson and Paulo Coelho, and no, I'm joking. but, you know, and that's where.
And how can, you know, I'm asking this question for you, but also for everyone listening. It's like, okay, if people haven't written one book that they've been trying to do, if they haven't done a fraction of what you've created, how can they feel enough if you can't feel enough?
I think part of our neurobiology is progress.
Yes.
So I think, you know, when you look at the healers and the emotional pundits, they say heal the wound, and I understand that. And there's a very powerful tool in the Everyday Hero Manifesto that has served me dramatically as well as my high-level clients. It's called the AFRA tool, and it allows you to move through micro and macro trauma in very profound ways.
How do you use it?
It takes a while to explain it, but basically you go into the body, you get very, very present, let's say it's a situation where you get activated, you get jealous, or you don't feel enough.
You're triggered.
You're triggered or activated. And you literally go in the body, and AFRA is you find the awareness, so you're located in the body.
Where's the pain? Where's the tightness, the tension?
It is because it's such a long conversation, but we are taught in our society not to feel. So what do? We become machines.
Yes.
And that's why we hurt our brothers and sisters. And that's why we become selfish versus giving to the world. We become machines, so we live in our minds, we get disconnected from our hearts. When we are disconnected from our hearts, we are disconnected from our truth. And our truth is creativity. Our truth is heroic productivity. Our truth is decency. Our truth is to serve the world. When I was growing up, my dad said, Robin, when you were born, you cried while the world rejoiced. He said, son, live your life in such a way that when you die, the world cries while you rejoice. This is all our truth. But through the micro and macro trauma that we pick up and then swallow, we develop what I call in the book a field of hurt. And I think this is really powerful because we all read books on productivity, elite performance. We all want to be less distracted. But I think the missing link to personal mastery is not in the head. It's not a new technique. It's doing the emotional healing that releases the blockages that build intimacy with who we truly are. And as you do that through the AFRA tool and the other tools that I talk about, each day there's a payoff.
Yeah.
And it's that there's a metaphor I start off the Everyday Hero Manifesto with, and I actually saw this monument, but I was in Thailand and I heard about this golden Buddha. And long story short, there was this incredible, priceless golden Buddha, incredibly towering. And the monks loved it, and the nationals of the country loved it. And then they heard there were going to be these warriors coming in, so they had to protect their national monument and their treasure. So one monk hatched a plan, and he said, let's cover it with layer upon layer upon layer of soil. So they said, that sounds good, and they did it. Eventually, the invaders came in, and they walked right by it. Many years later, someone was passing by, and he saw a glimmer of gold shining out from this mountain of mud, and he started digging, and he started moving through the layers, and every time he moved through the layers, there was more and more and more gold that began to shine, and he got very excited, and he brought his friends together, and they started moving through the layers and layers and layers of golden Buddha until eventually there was this magnificent monument that was gasp-worthy. And I cannot think of a more honest metaphor for us as human beings. You know, we are born into genius, but many of us get resigned in apathy and mediocrity. And it's these layers of doubt, disbelief, fear, the programming we are taught that create these layers over our gold. But this work, whether it's the AFRA tool, whether it's meditation, whether it's prayer, whether it's sweat lodge, whether it's acupuncture, whether it's whatever it is, these modalities allow us to move through the layers if the teacher is right and the discipline is good, so we reclaim that golden Buddha, which is really what the Everyday Hero is about. We all can be heroic. We just don't know how to get there, and then we're not willing to pay the price to stay with the program.
What's the biggest thing that gets us in the way of getting to our heroic adventure? Is it fear, doubt, insecurity, shame, pain, hurt? What is it?
Self-forgetfulness.
What does that mean?
What it means is, from the moment we are born, the world does a con job on our greatest self. our early caregivers, well-intentioned as they are, start messaging their programming, their scarcity, their belief system onto us. We also pick up this micro and macro trauma. You're in grade 5, you don't get invited to your best friend's party.
And you remember it for years.
You remember it for years. You're singing loudly in biology class or whatever, and someone says, you sound terrible. You carry that wound for a lifetime.
Wow.
You say, I want to be a billionaire or an astronaut or a movement maker. I want to change the world, mommy or daddy or teacher or best friend. And they laugh at you, and they laugh at you for the next 3 weeks. And then a story gets set up about your undeservability. And here's something that any great psychologist will tell you. Your daily behavior is always matching your deepest beliefs.
Before the interview continues, if you feel like you're not living your most authentic life, not leaning into your purpose, and not living the life that your future self would be extremely proud of, I've written a new book called The Greatness Mindset, and I think you're gonna love this. Through powerful stories, science-backed strategies, and step-by-step guidance, The Greatness Mindset will help you overcome all the different challenges in your life to design the life of your dreams and then turn it into your reality. Make sure to click the link below in the description to get your copy today. Okay, let's get back to this video.
Lewis, it is our story. Our story that we can't be in the NBA. Our story that, well, no, obviously you need certain physical attributes, but your story that you can't build a startup. Your story that you can't change the world. Your story that you can't find love, because your daily behavior, if you don't think you can find love, you're not going to ask the person out for a date.
That's right.
If you don't think you can launch the startup that will be the next billion-dollar or trillion-dollar unicorn, you're not going to pick up the first book. And so I think what it is, it's we forget who we are, and then we buy into a story that was taught to us, and then we keep rehearsing the story intellectually, emotionally, physically, and spiritually daily until it creates a brainwashing and a heart washing, and we hypnotize ourselves against us for who we truly are. And then we walk out in the world and we see the Mandelas, the Mother Teresas, the Rosa Parkses, or the kind people on the street, or the startup entrepreneurs, or the great artists, or the amazing bakers, and we say, but they are not cut from a cloth that I can wear, and then we resign ourselves to average.
Self-forgetfulness, forgetting who we are, and the stories we tell ourselves. What were you saying? It's the deservedness, like the behavior, the daily behaviors are what? You're saying something around that and deservedness.
Our daily behaviors reflect our deepest beliefs, and our income and impact are always aligned with our self-identity.
Our income and impact are aligned with our identity. Can you share more on that?
It's this inner story. So if you don't believe you are deserving, then you won't find great love. If you don't believe that you have been infused with talent and power because you've been put down all your life, then you have a self-identity of apathy and victimhood. I think a through line through the Everyday Hero Manifesto is you walk out in the world every day and you have a choice. You can subscribe to being a victim, or you can subscribe to being a hero.
You've got a whole chapter on that, victim to hero leap. So growth is one of those habits on a daily basis. You feel like 95% of people aren't doing consistently, that they could be adding. What would you say are 2 more habits that the 95% aren't doing?
Well, again, even the question makes me feel to answer it would be almost like I'm disrespecting people, because I don't want to sound like I'm talking down, but I'd say for me or the people that I mentor, growth is a key habit. I call it the 60-second student, like at least 60-minute student, at least 60 minutes of learning every day is very, very powerful. I think another great habit is the 5 great hours rule that I talk about in the book. It takes most producers 2 weeks to do 5 world-class hours of work because we haven't set up our ecosystem, because we're not getting into flow state and transient hypofrontality, because we're constantly checking our phone. If you look at the great geniuses, they all had one thing in common. They spent long periods of time alone in their work lab thinking about solutions to their biggest problems. So this 5 great hours rule, it's set up your workplace so you cannot be distracted. Set up your devices so you can do real work versus fake work, and do 5 sweaty, intense flow state hours versus playing around. And then after that, you've got the rest of the day off. You know, if you start at 8, you finish at 1, you can go mountain biking, be with your family, enjoy your life, do all those kinds of things. So that, I think, is a great habit. You know, I'm going to obviously getting up early and installing the 5 a.m. club method. It takes 66 days, according to the research of University College London, to install a new habit. Imagine getting up at 5 a.m., doing your morning protocol of exercise, supplementation, journaling, prayer, meditation, etc. Sounds like a lot, but learning chemistry the first time sounds like a lot. Learning Italian the first time sounds like a lot. Falling in love when you're clueless sounds like a lot until it becomes easy. Your language reveals the way you see yourself. And he had sold himself a bill of goods that moving to Canada was impossible. You know, so get rid of the can't. You know, people who say can't, and people make excuses. Like, your excuses are nothing more than the lies your fears have sold you. And if you repeat your excuses long enough,